And we're live. We're live. All right, folks, we are live here in Facebook land. And we'll be getting rolling in just a minute here. We're getting our Instagram live up right now. Give us a second as we get that going. Okay, hopefully my Instagram is working. Actually, Susan, if you can you go to my Instagram page and see if it's making me live right now? Susan Brown's in her green room from US Bank. She can be joining us soon. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. It's night 3 of Home Seller Week. It's our 3rd of 4 events this week. And tonight, I'm going to be giving you some tips and, excuse me, advice on how do I choose which offer to accept, or should I choose this offer that's in front of me? Because we want to presume that anybody is sitting here with multiple offers. If you're watching tonight, be sure to give us a like, maybe comment in the chat. If you're watching on Instagram, we are having a little issue there where sometimes when there's 2 people on, when I have a guest, it splits the screen. You can't see either of us, but you can hear us. And my Instagram comments, I don't have my team helping me tonight, so you will not see response. So I'm so sorry. So if you comment me on Instagram, maybe send me a direct message there if you got a question or you want to say hi, because I might not see it. And if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube Live, those comments do come through and I can very easily see those. So please send a little message as you're watching. Let us know you're here, like, comment, share even. And we'll get going here in a few minutes. Tonight, we're going to be kind of talking about offer terms and what to look for and maybe how to structure, if you're a seller, an offer that's in your best interest. Especially right now, the biggest thing coming up is the buyer going to close, and what does that timing look like for me as a seller? We get those questions a lot. We've had a lot of questions this year about if somebody wants to have a post-close possession, something like that. So we're going to get to that with my special guest, Susan Brown from US Bank. Hold please as I blow out a candle. Just realizing my candle has almost burned itself out. So we're going to stop that now so it doesn't do bad things during our broadcast. Ooh, smoke everywhere. Look at that. No, we're not on fire. Just that's happening. So, you know, live here, the magic of live. It's not television, but whatever this is. So thanks for joining us. For those that are tuning in, give us a little like or a little love button either. Sorry, guys, it's been a long week. I can't figure my dictation out anymore. Anywho, we'll get rolling in a few minutes. Want to give people some time to gather. If you're watching on Instagram, I'm apologizing now because comments. I don't have somebody watching the comments, and the platform that we use to broadcast all the different places here is called StreamYard, but there's a little bit of an issue with Instagram. So I can't even see who's watching live on Instagram right now unless I have somebody out there doing it for me, and I don't have that person tonight because we're a little short-handed. So anywho, we're going to talk more about offers. Which one should I accept? How do I know if I should accept an offer, etc., yada, yada. All that to come. So in another minute, I am going to bring on my good friend, Susan Brown from US Bank, and we're just going to chitty chat tonight and especially talk about evaluating financing on an offer, because that is hands down, you know, in our market here in Chicago, the majority of properties are financed. So there's a 90, I mean, I'm quoting air statistics here, you know, 95% chance your buyer for your home is going to need to finance. So how do you evaluate that? And there's a lot of different types of financing. So we're really going to dive in that tonight because I think it's something that gets overlooked. You know, far too often we see sellers, they want to go for one thing, price. What's the price? The highest price is not always your best offer. It's not always the most likely buyer to close. And that's something that's really important in a hot seller's market, is that if you're going to pick somebody, you need to know that that person is going to go through and they're going to get to the closing table. They might not be the highest price, but there's something about a sure thing. And let me tell you why that's important, because sometimes when you choose the higher price, if that person can't perform, by the time they can't perform, your other buyers might have gone elsewhere. I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen this year. So it's a really important piece. For those that are just joining us, thank you. If you're tuning in, like, maybe love this broadcast, maybe drop us a comment if you're on Facebook or YouTube Live. Let us know you're here. I can see those comments. If you're on Instagram, I'm so sorry, but I don't have somebody watching those comments from me tonight. They don't automatically populate to our StreamYard broadcast studio here. So unfortunately, I won't see them. So send me a DM if you're watching on Instagram. And if you have any questions, send me a note. And I'll keep watching there to see if anything pops in my DMs as we go tonight. So technology, man, you got to love it. We are going to bring in my friend Susan Brown here in a second. Sorry, that was me checking my Instagram to make sure there was nothing there that I should know about. So thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Make sure to like and love it. We don't have any emails coming in, so we're fine. There we go. Sorry, distracted. It's 7:06. Let's get to our first guest, well, our only guest tonight. She'll be with us for the first half. Susan, are you ready? Thumbs up if you are. Okay, awesome. I love our little virtual green room. It's so fun. I have to send a shout out to my friend Rachel Potter, who helped me get this set up. And it's way easier than I thought it was going to be, but that was after a lot of test runs and such. So I'm bringing Susan in right now.
Hello.
Oh, good. And we can hear you and everything is just dandy, dandy, dandy. Good. Okay, good. Welcome to our little broadcast, our little dog and pony show here.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Susan and I have known each other for a gajillion years. And she's one of our favorite lenders with US Bank. And so tonight's topic is, how do I choose which offer to accept? And the title of that, as I think back on it, does kind of assume that someone is in a position of having multiple offers, which is fantastic, but not everybody may be in that situation. So we're going to maybe just assume, should I choose an offer? Should I take one? And for those watching tonight, by the way, we're live on Facebook and Instagram. If you're watching us, or YouTube too, if you're watching us here, give us a like on Facebook and comment, send us a little note. I can see our lovely comments from Facebook and YouTube Live. I can't see my Instagram comments, unfortunately. So if you want to comment there, send me a direct message and I'll see it that way. Okay, so let's just dive right in. Obviously, when an offer comes in, there are going to be a lot of different terms, and there's probably the ones that the seller cares most about are always, when do they want to close? What's the purchase price? And of course, those things are important, and we'll talk about that more later. But the other part that I think a lot of people forget about is financing and what is there. And so Susan's here to kind of clue us in and talk about the different types of financing. We especially want to talk about FHA and VA, want to be mindful of on that, and kind of what are the things to look for, maybe some of the pitfalls, maybe something that you didn't think that you should be looking for when it comes to evaluating an offer on your home. So there we are.
So thank you so much for having me, Scott. I appreciate it. And I think you're absolutely right. The first thing the seller's eyes go to is price in a seller market. So what we're seeing a lot of lately is, if everybody's the same on price, then it comes down to financing and who the lender is, who they've been pre-approved with, what due diligence has been done. I want to maybe throw it to my old school realtors, because I'm old school. Does anybody remember this form that used to be attached to the multi-board?
Is that the W-9?
This is actually Arizona. Okay, Arizona uses this, but we used to here in Illinois. It's a pre-qualification.
Oh, the loan status disclosure.
Yes, the loan
status anymore, right? I remember that.
The LSD, as I like to call it. And so most states still use this. Illinois has gotten away from using it because we support a pre-approval letter, and this is sometimes just added workflow for everybody. But I think this is a good template for realtors to use to verify a pre-approval letter. If they're in a multiple offer situation and they want to test the waters a little further with the pre-approvals, you can ask that the lender complete this form. And I pulled up the Arizona one. You can pull up the old, Illinois one that was the loan status disclosure. But it really asks the loan officer, the lender, to tell us what they know about the file. It asks them, is the buyer married? Have you reviewed their income documents? Have you reviewed their pay stubs? Have you reviewed their assets? Have they submitted for gift funds? So it gives a lot more detail than a pre-approval letter. So I think if you're in a situation where you want the lender to put a little bit further detail into it so that your seller can have additional information to assess an offer, I would suggest going to or asking the lender to fill out this form, or just verbally asking them these questions. Yep.
I'm putting in the comments right now all of the standard questions that I always ask and our team always ask when just gonna be a lot of comments popping. When I'm just realizing it's pulling up the bullet point. That's like, what's that weird thing? So I'm popping in all the comment section right now, all the questions, the standard questions that we ask when a financed offer comes in. So I'm popping this. So give me a second here. Hold on. I'm realizing this is also like a template. So like we have things when we ask about like the mortgage contingency date, yes. It's like has a spot to fill that in. So we don't need that here. Live, non-television, whatever this is here. But I'm dropping that in for everybody. So these are really, I think, important questions. And we always have them. Hold on, one more to go.
Good.
Okay. Oh, phew, all of them. So there's all the standard questions that we pose to loan officers when we receive a financed offer. We do this in writing, so we have it and it's documented, so we can easily forward it to the seller. So what's on our list always is asking if the closing and mortgage commitment dates are achievable without extension, asking if they've run the file through direct and automated underwriting, have they reviewed the buyer's employment profile and credit and essentially like gotten their documentation, and where something else that I'm sorry, I'm all like hiccupy and burpy tonight. Live non-television, people, as I'm calling it. Something that we started doing when the pandemic hit, when there was so much volatility in the stock market, we started asking where the buyer's down payment funds coming from. Are they liquid? Because we were concerned last March, April, this is March and April of 2020, that if somebody today had this much money, tomorrow they could have this. And if they're short, now what happens to the owner? So we started asking that question so we would know and be able to advise. So I'm sure you might have some thoughts on that too, but it's kind of like our own version of the loan status disclosure, really.
Yes, absolutely. And so I think I would encourage if you have time. I know right now in a seller's market, realtors are out there working really hard and long hours. And I know it's not easy to always do all of the calls when you have, so many offers to review. But if you could at least do the baseline there, which is exactly what Scott referred to, ask if contingency and closing dates can be met, ask if the borrower's income and asset documents have been reviewed and are in good order, employment history. Yes, those are all what I feel are kind of your baseline questions for the pre-approval letter to make sure, because when you have a lender on the phone, it's easier to navigate if you hear a little concern in their voice. So I think sometimes it's beneficial to have those conversations. Now, what I wanted to talk about tonight was, multiple offers with obviously financing. What I want to encourage people is, if you're a low down payment offer and you're in a competitive situation, I think where your offer may be put to the forward is if you're, flexible on certain things, flexible on closing dates, flexible on maybe a post-closing possession if needed, being flexible for, the timeline. That's kind of important. The other thing that I've noticed is I don't want sellers to always discount a low down payment offer, because sometimes a low down payment offer can leave the borrower with funds to bridge an appraisal shortage if it happens, versus someone else that may not ever want to do that or may not participate in that. So what I think, if you're in a situation, you're reviewing each of them, obviously larger down payments can move. They have more room to move to a different loan size to be able to support it and the appraisal. But a 10% down buyer might leave themselves with enough room too. So sometimes what I find is, ask the buyers, hey, are you willing to bridge an appraisal differential up to X dollars? And then you know who's got more, potential assets in the bank. Because if price is there for a low down payment, ask that question. Hey, do you have some funds set aside that you could bridge a differential if there was one? I think that's kind of key for your low down payment people to put that forth, because their offers might get discounted off the top because there's larger down payments or cash offers in the pool. So that was the situation. Scott did ask me to talk about different loan programs and what pitfalls to look for. And I know Scott supports our veterans very heavily, which I appreciate. Scott and I have a lot of history together with working to get buildings VA approved so that a VA borrower can purchase in them. So what I'm referring to is, if a veteran is purchasing in a condominium project, the entire project is required to be VA approved for that veteran to be able to purchase in that building. FHA is a similar loan program backed by the federal government, and it has the same rules. The building needs to be FHA approved for an FHA buyer to buy in a condominium project. One thing that I want to note about the veterans out there, VA will review the condo project at no cost. FHA does have a cost involved to it, potentially, if you're a direct lender and want to approve it. But if you submit it directly to HUD, they will review it at no cost. But there's a time component. So I want everybody to know that don't discount a VA offer. If you feel the building is eligible for VA financing, getting a building VA approved is not as difficult as everybody thinks it is. So as long as you have the knowledge and know the questions to ask, and that's why, Scott and his team absolutely know what questions to ask. They're very knowledgeable and educated in being able to vet a building for FHA and VA, lending. So lean on your realtor, lean on your officer to ask those questions. But those are always, we want to support our veterans and our FHA buyers the best we can. But I do wish everybody cash buyers,
I mean, Brian with the busy. I'm going to jump in real quick because we've had a couple more people join into our live streams tonight. We got some folks on Facebook and YouTube, probably some folks on Instagram, but we're having a little challenge right now where I can't see those comments. So if you're watching on Instagram Live, first of all, you probably may not, you only see like a little bit of our faces, but you can hear us. And my apologies on that. I can't see your comments. So if you have a question, send a note, via a direct message, and we'll see it there. We might not see it till later, but definitely engage. If you're watching on the other platforms, make sure to comment, drop a little comment there. We've definitely got a lot of comments that we've been posting. We just posted a few minutes ago all of the standard questions that we ask when we have, a financed offer coming in, so that we can get straight answers to our sellers. And Susan Brown from US Bank has joined us tonight. We're talking about some of those things. And, everybody, we're going to talk more about pricing and closing dates, at the back half of the hour. But everybody always wants to think about the price and the closing date because those are the sexy terms. But a lot of people don't talk about the financeability of a buyer. And we're here in Chicago in a market that is predominantly finance purchases. We have cash deals, but we don't have as many as you might see in some other markets, I think. So it's really important. And Susan was just kind of chiming in about, if you've got someone that's an FHA or VA buyer, and in those situations of building a condominium or a townhome, if that's what you're buying, single family homes are fine because anything can qualify there. They have to be approved. And one of the questions as a seller that you should definitely be mindful of is if you do have someone coming in that has the financing is FHA or VA, who that lender is going to be extremely important. And one of the biggest questions to ask is if the project, so this is for condominiums or townhomes, if the project, and Susan, you can back me up or add me some things here, if it's not already approved for FHA or VA, have they looked into if it can be, right? A good listing agent will at least have access to those answers and say, let me look that up. But if it's not, but it could be, so it's not approved, but it could be approvable, who's the loan officer and what's the loan company? Here's a little tip. USAA does not get projects approved for VA, which makes PS, no fucking sense to me. Because you're an organization that serves veterans, but you will not get a condominium project VA approved. I mean, that's like baking a cake and just saying, I'm going to leave out this one ingredient, and then your cake's going to taste like poo. Oh, anyway, sorry, dovetail there. I just cursed, and probably YouTube or Facebook will tell me that my content is dirty now, whatever. I always say it's not for children anyway. So you may be able to talk a little bit more about that, because I know we've have gotten a lot of projects approved for both over the years. So
absolutely. And that's just one component. Most of your offers are going to be traditional financing, which is conventional. Your loans that are over 548, 250 are going to be in the jumbo segment. And most, Chicago condominiums do know the rules of lending and do work to adhere to those rules. So if you have a particular case where you're supporting a veteran or a VA buyer or an FHA buyer, and you need further assistance in knowing what they can buy in which project, please reach out to Scott, and him and his team and myself can get answers for you on that topic. And I agree, though. I think vetting a pre-approval letter, Scott and I have talked about this for years and years and years. It is a critical part of a realtor's job on the listing side, so that they can help the seller navigate the offers in which to accept in a very tough negotiation situation. So I wanted to ask Scott, what are you seeing for contingencies as far as like inspection and appraisal contingencies for your offers coming in? Things, are you seeing people scratch those?
We've seen a little bit of somebody saying, I'll buy the house as is. I haven't seen a lot of people waiving inspection contingencies. And I don't really think that they have to. It's been an interesting year in that regard. I think the appraisal one is a much bigger consideration for us to talk about, because we have seen at points, and I've had a lot of my buyers even do this, is looking towards saying that they would bridge a gap on a short appraisal. Maybe not the whole thing, maybe saying I'll bridge the gap a certain amount. But that's also been a way to get deals through right now, and you mentioned it earlier, that's something as a seller that if you're sitting there, looking at multiple offers, that might be something to ask each person. Are you willing to bridge a gap for an appraisal? And would you be willing to put that in writing? That's also the key thing, because you want them on the hook. I mean, people can say up front, I agree with that, and I'll do that, but you want it in writing, not on the contract, by the way. We do that as a separate addendum, because you want the appraiser to be like, why does the contract say they're worried about appraisal, right? That's the one thing I always say is like, we don't do that,
You and I have talked about it a lot, but appraisers live in closed sale world, and we live in active and contingent and pending and on the market. And those worlds have to get as close as possible until data comes through. And so that's why the real out there are so critical, because you are seeing the data before an appraiser does. You're walking the streets, you're in the mud living it. So, your education to that appraiser coming in is critical. Now, pre-approvals obviously are your first, your first thing that you have to go through with that seller. I don't know how a seller picks an offer in this market, to be honest. Is it a flip of the coin sometimes? Are you feeling like, is it trusting your gut? What is it? Is it?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think there's definitely that trusting your gut, I mean, sometimes it's looking and saying like, which buyers seem to really love it the most, like what's their temperament, because you can have someone after a multiple offer situation that maybe they won, but then maybe they weren't, they get a little cold feet, or they feel like they overpaid, or the inspection comes and maybe there's only a bunch of little small ticky-tacky things, but 5 to 10 ticky-tacky things all of a sudden can be overwhelming, so sometimes I don't know that it is it's an exact science, you know. I mean, you can look all day. This person's the most qualified. Another piece realistically that we've paid a lot of. Sorry, weird shifting there as I was adjusting myself in the chair, getting comfortable. We have certainly seen a lot more. I think onus put on who the broker for the buyers is too. You know, how experienced is that person? How experienced are they at navigating, counseling their client? You know, I personally think it's a harder time right now if you're a newer agent in the business and you don't have the relationships, you don't have the know-how, if you will, and you just haven't been around the block enough times to know also how to counsel somebody. You know, I mean, in a lot of cases right now, it's a question of like, you know, how bad do you want it? Like that's what it's going to come down to, you know. And I want to pause really quickly just in we got a couple. I've seen a bunch of new people jump in, so thanks everybody that's watching tonight. Thanks to Julie and Jennifer, and those are the people I can see comments. So if you're watching right now, give us a like or give us a love button even, because I can see those and I can see your comments on Instagram. I mentioned earlier, and I'll repeat it again because if you're watching, I can't see you tonight. I don't have our team sitting here watching and babysitting it, and the platform we're using, which is called StreamYard, when it comes through, it doesn't populate here to me the Instagram comments. So unfortunately, I do not see you. So if you're listening on Instagram, and you might be listening because the split screen sometimes screws up, go ahead and send me a direct message, and we'll happy to chat, or switch over to Facebook or YouTube, comment there, and then we'll connect with you there. So anyway, little PSA there. I am like continuing looking down at my Instagram to see if it'll pop any DMs that I have to respond to. But anyway, so back to, we were talking about like, how do you get deals to the front of the line? I mean, we actually talked about this a lot last week when we had our how do you win a multiple offer? And when Josh and Julie and I were talking, one of the key things was pick up the phone. You know, I mean, the broker that picks up the phone and asks questions and can maybe give a little bit of color about their buyer and, you know, why this house worked for them. You know, you're really trying to bet who's going to get to the closing table, who's not going to screw around, and who's not going to be nitpicky, and who's going to be easy to work with. That's the other part, you know.
And I wanted to talk to you about one more thing. You know, here at my company, one thing that we're also doing is we're submitting clients already into the underwriting process without a property selected, so that they have a leg up when it comes to a multiple offer situation, because then it's just a plug and play with the property. So it's a nice feature to expedite the transaction, as well as to give buyer assurances that they don't have to worry about anything. So that's often what I'm moving towards if I know someone is going to be in that price point that is really going to put a lot of pressure on a multiple offer. That's nice thing to utilize if you need it.
Yeah, I mean, and that also, I mean, you know, that's something too. If as a sellers of, you know, when you're evaluating an offer, what's a lot like, how strong is that? Again, how strong is that financing? You don't want to get the call 3 weeks later that, oh, the person, you know, they couldn't get their loan because of XYZ, you know. I mean, although I think the biggest challenge on the loan side this year has been low appraisals. I mean, we've seen more than we've ever seen, but I can't tell if that's because we've done more business or if that's just we've seen more, you know. But we've also seen a lot of waiver of appraisals in the last 12 months, you know. So that's a nice piece too for sellers.
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, a nice feature too when you are able to pass that along early in the process, that there's an appraisal waiver to give everybody peace of mind to move forward, because that is right. You know, our agencies, which are Fannie and Freddie, have supported appraisal waivers as long as the buyer is accepting of that. They can, if they're a file afforded a waiver, they can take advantage of it and save the cost and the time and the worry. So I agree, appraisal waivers have been a key component of this market for sure.
Yeah, and it's that thing you don't know it's happening, and then later you're like, oh, gift, it's like Christmas, you know.
Absolutely.
Well, what else did you want to go over tonight, Susan? I know you have to depart us in a little bit here, so I wanted to make sure we got all of your points across.
Absolutely. Yeah, my highlights when we were chatting about what we were going to talk about here was, you know, vet your pre-approval letters as a listing agent accepting offers. If you're there on price with all offers, I would, make the calls, have, put it either in writing or via phone, maybe utilize these old school, loan disclosure worksheets. That was one of them. And then if you can, if people are willing to bridge the gap in an appraisal shortage, maybe verbally or in writing, say up to what amount, if that is, if you're there on price. And then utilizing, making sure that you vet the financing in conjunction with the project, with the actual unit, if it is a condominium or association townhome that is not fee simple. So those were my highlights. And then I obviously wanted to plug that we will submit a buyer for full pre-approval without a property, so that they can have the peace of mind when they're out there shopping for a home that they're already approved for the loan. So those were kind of my key takeaways. I know, everyone's a veteran in this business. I wanted to just give a shout out to Scott and his team and all the realtors out there working super hard, super long hours. I know it's been tough, and your work is noted and appreciated. Really, you're doing all the work. Yes.
Right. Well, I think the loan officers are working pretty hard as well. So doesn't go unnoticed there. And on that note too, if a lot of our sellers are also buyers today. So it's interesting. There's a lot of crossover between our home buying week we did last week and our home seller week that we're doing this week, and I think, on that end too, for the people that are, going to be looking at, a purchase, maybe as a seller, you're leaving in your property, you're going to go buy something. These are good tips for you, because you're going to be on the other side. So to get with a qualified lender like Susan that has vetted it,
I know, and I had a seller that would not accept a contingent offer, but then they were contingent, and I had to say, "Oop, we gotta, let's think about this now." So, so they worked hard to remove their contingency so that they could compete in the market. But yes, if you're a seller and about to be a buyer, remember when you're thinking about those offers that you're going to be out there soon.
Karma.
Yes.
Karma.
Scott, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
So I'm out in the real world, vaccinated, going to try to feel like a real person again. So thank you for having me.
All right, we're going to send you back to the virtual green room. Bye, Susan. Thanks so much. Bye. Okay, y'all. Well, good news if you're watching an Instagram Live. Now you probably see me. Of course, I can't read or see your comments because of a little glitch. So forgive me on that. But private or DM me on Instagram if you're watching there with questions. And if I can't get to them this evening, I'll get back to them later. So that was Susan Brown from US Bank, who we've worked with for years. We have a lot of great lenders in our mix, and Susan's actually done some of my personal transactions, and she's really well qualified, especially on the topic of FHA and VA loans, which we touched on a little bit. So for those that are just joining us, I'm going to recap a little bit. So tonight's event is all about how do I choose which offer to accept when I'm selling my house, and I should kind of also add a title, or should I accept this offer? Because the title does kind of assume that it's multiple offers, and not every seller gets multiple offers. Although 2021 has certainly been a year where it's a lot more prevalent than it has been in the past. But your question, so there's questions you want to ask, the sexy pieces, which we're going to start to talk now a little bit. And Susan was my only guest tonight, so now you have me for the next 20 minutes. You're welcome, or I'm sorry, one of the two. The sexy things are price, right? That's what everybody wants to know. What's the price? When I present offers to my sellers, we always talk price last. And that's very pointed because we're going to talk the most about it, right? And I always tell my sellers, don't read anything into it. It just means that that's the one we have the most conversation around, and we need to get through some of the other box check stuff, right? But there's a lot of different terms on a purchase contract. And not even putting the fact of multiple offer or not multiple offer, before you're going to accept one, you've got to look through that. Of course, the price is important and the closing date's important, and the financing type is important. But then other little things like earnest money, right? That's your deposit money. If you're in another state, you might call it your escrow deposit, your initial deposit, what have you. But I think a lot of times people don't look at that and look at when it's due, one, and two, how much is there? We like to see 2.5% to 5% of the purchase price because you want the buyer to have some skin in the game, right? If someone's got $1,000 in, depending on the price point, they might walk away from that no problem. So you want to know that you want to know that they're serious, and a buyer should want to show you they're serious. So a lot of those terms really can matter. And also, so we spent a lot of time talking about financing. I don't want to beat that horse anymore. I think we've hit a lot of great points. But the one thing I will say for anybody that's tuned in recently is if you're in a multiple offer situation, especially, ask the buyers you're interested in working with, and maybe there's one, maybe there's two or three that could look really good. Ask them if they're willing to bridge the gap if the appraisal is short, and get that in writing. That should, from my standpoint, if I'm going to accept you as a buyer and you've said yes, I want that in writing on an addendum to the purchase contract that states that you will meet that. And maybe it's for a set amount. Maybe they say, oh, we cover a $5,000 shortfall or $10,000. But you want that in writing, because what most people don't know is when an appraisal comes in low, it's just going to be low. Like, we for years tried to fight them. And after years of contesting them in what's called a reconsideration, it's a rebuttal. The way I look at it is this: if an appraisal is low and you're the appraiser, it's like me coming to you and saying, hey, it reminds me of Office Space, the movie, actually, if you've ever seen that. Of course you've seen that, because you're probably my age if you're watching this and you're going, of course I've seen Office Space. And thanks everybody that's watching us, by the way. Make sure to drop a comment in there. Let us know where you're watching from, or like or love even this broadcast, so we see your face. It's kind of like when the oh my God, what's the guy who runs the office? I can't remember now, but he comes over and he's like, I'm going to need you to stay this weekend. It's kind of like that. It's like, imagine someone comes to you with you're the appraiser, and they say, that appraisal you did, I'm going to need you to fix it. It's not right. Even when we've had instances where there were factual inaccuracies, like we did last summer, where an appraiser mistakenly noted that the parking spaces in a high-rise were deeded parking spaces, when in fact they were rented parking spaces and not owned. And it skewed our appraisal by $10,000. And if it hadn't have been noted that way, it would not have. That's a whole other issue with the appraisal. So the appraisal, hi Veda. The appraisal world it's a bunch of horse crap. That's what it is. That's how I feel about it. I'm not shy with my opinions. And so we've taken now where we don't try and contest them anymore, because I think in 10 years of contesting, a handful or more low appraisals a year, we've had the needle moved once. Not worth our time. So up front, hi Melinda, thanks for watching. Up front, if you can get that, even better. But also, I think it's one of those conversations to have, with, if an appraisal does come in low, you want to attack it really quickly. How much can the buyer bridge the gap? Okay, that works, that doesn't, or will the buyer switch lenders? Will the buyer, consider ordering a second appraisal? You have to be very quick. So that's a word to the sellers. If an appraisal comes in low, be quick. Don't waste time. The more time the buyer has to think about it, the less likely they are to bridge that gap or bridge it to where you need them to. And I've learned that from the experience the hard way. So that's why we don't contest appraisals anymore. It's not worth our time. It's a waste of a week. Screw it. What can you do? No, you can't. On to the next person. That's how it goes. Anyway, so put a lot of stake in the financing. I think it's overlooked way too often. The other piece, of course, price is important, but I think you also have to be mindful of what is the price that buyer wrote, and is it super crazy? We just had one where my buyers were $10,000 less than another offer, and we got accepted because the sellers were like, there's no way it's going to appraise. So just because you're paying $10,000 more than somebody next to you doesn't mean that is going to go through and it's actually going to cross the finish line. So, and as a seller, be mindful of that. I think, everybody, you get the money dangled in front of you. Everyone's like, ooh, may not be the best thing. So the highest offer is not always your best offer. Again, who's going to close the deal? Separately, if the buyer is represented by a broker, which they should be and usually are, does that person know their head from their you-know-what? Because there's a lot of people in our industry that do not. And if they're anxious, worried, annoying, you know what their buyer's going to be? anxious, worried, annoying, like begets like. So don't make that the number one thing, but think about that. It's a consideration. Do you want to be in bed with these people for the next 45 to 60 days? Another piece that we haven't talked about yet, I was saving it towards the end, is dates, meaning closing dates. This is a wonderful market for a seller to be able to, in a lot of ways, write their own ticket about possession dates. And we've seen a lot more flexibility this year with buyers being willing to let a seller close on a property and then either stay maybe for a couple weeks at no charge or rent back, right? Attorneys don't usually like the post-closing possessions, but this year they've been much more popular. So by the way, if you're just joining us, thank you for joining in. Make sure to like or comment so we know where you're watching from, and we appreciate you watching. If you're watching on Instagram, I'm going to say I'm sorry because we're having a little issue with our tech tonight, where you might not actually, I don't see your comments. So if you're commenting on Instagram, I'm going to apologize, but send me a direct message. Hopefully that will come through and then I can reply to you there. Anyway, so the closing date, I think be really clear about what you want. Remember, you have to be out at closing. A lot of people, I tell my clients, be out 5 p.m. the day before closing. So be real clear with that and don't be afraid to ask a buyer, hey, can you have a little flexibility with me here on the closing date? Meaning for possession, or what's your end? If you're going to go buy something, you know what I would do? I would recommend get yourself a 35 or a 45-day closing date on your sale with, if the buyer can do it, 30 days possession, 45 days possession. It's better to do an earlier close and then possession for a bit versus a 60-day close. Unless you know where you're going and that works out better, that might. Evaluate what works for you, but ask the question of the buyer or buyers to see who's going to be the right fit. The other thing that's come up too, that we've been seeing a lot more of this year, is the as-is purchase. Now I want to talk a little bit about the as-is, because for whatever reason, many years ago, a broker I knew, who unfortunately is no longer with us, I heard her on the phone with a client and she said, well, we could write as is, but and these were her words, as is really doesn't mean as is. Pause for reaction. No. In my world, as is means as is. And I bought 2 houses as is, by the way. So, and I didn't ask for anything because that's what you do. So be mindful. And it wouldn't be a bad idea if you have somebody offering as is to say, we want to make sure that your buyer understands that as is does mean as is. We are not going to fix anything. So we want to, are you sure they're really in as is? Right? A lot of times people think, oh, I'll do that. But then if there's something big, they're going to have to fix it. I don't. Most attorneys will tell the sellers, you didn't pay for the inspection. If you don't have the report, you don't have to disclose anything because technically that person could be a whack job. You don't know. So be mindful of that too. I think a lot of times people throw that in as it's almost like a mask, and then they unveil it later, like, oh, just kidding. Didn't really count. It counts. So pausing, by the way, to say thank you to Susan Brown from US Bank, one of our favorite lenders who was with us earlier, talking a lot about financing and the tricks to look for on people's pre-approval letters and their loan disclosures and the loan communication, the communication with the lenders. So she was here for the first part with us. Want to thank you. You just have me for the end. I'm sorry. If you just joined in, make sure to comment, let me know where you're watching from, and make sure to like or love the broadcast here if you're watching on Facebook so I can see you. If you're watching on Instagram, my apologies that I can't see your comments tonight. I don't have my team with me that's monitoring them, and the platform we're using for this is called StreamYard, which is great because it links all these different sites to broadcast, but it does not allow me to see your lovely comments on Instagram. So forgive me if you're commenting and I'm not seeing it. Anywho, back to content. So we went over terms. I'm looking at my notes, by the way. We went over dates, closing dates and such, possession dates. We went over price, of course. We went over financing terms. The other piece, I guess my advice for sellers on figuring out which offer to accept is make sure that you and your broker have gone page by page in the offer. Make sure that there isn't anything slid in. Make sure there wasn't a home warranty noted that you maybe didn't notice. Look at the property tax prorations. Really, if you're comparing, even if it's just one offer, you want to make sure that you know everything in there. And the most important thing, and the thing I think is missed, is do you have any noted exclusions on your home? Now, if you're listening out there in, I call this non-television land, As a seller, if there's something that is presumed to stay, that's like a fixture, right? Your window treatments and hardware, your light fixtures, shelving that's screwed into the wall. Those are all fixtures, right? They're attached. They're presumed to stay. Now, first, if there's something you were going to take, it should have been disclosed up front, but let's say it wasn't. Make sure that you bring it up before you execute that contract, and make sure that you check the personal property section of your purchase contract. It's on the first page, that everything they have checked there is something that exists in your house. A lot of times we see issues with people checking garbage disposals when they're like, I don't have one. Well, it says it on the contract. You can have that adjusted in attorney review, but people start to feel a little bad, a little like, oh, you took something from me. So always make sure that you review that, and everything that you have that is checked on there, you're going to have to turn over. And that includes, this might be stupid, if you have a garage, look at the number of garage openers that you are supposed to give. If it's a 2-car, it's probably going to say 2. Do you have 2 of them? If you have 1, you better check it now. If not, you will be buying someone a garage opener at the 11th hour before closing. So that's my little advice there. We've got about 10 more minutes left on our broadcast. So as you're watching, if you guys have questions, please comment, send us a note. I'm happy to answer some specific questions. I think we might wrap a little earlier tonight, just because I think we've hit through some really, really great topics. And thanks everybody for watching with us and sticking with us tonight. The market continues to be a little crazy, but it's calmed a little bit. It's a good even pace right now. So, oh, I have a question about garage openers. So it is, so what I was saying before is on the personal property section of a purchase contract, there's a lot of things that a buyer will check. You want to make sure that everything checked you are giving. If you have a garage and it's a 2-car, people expect 1 opener per vehicle. So if it's a 2-car garage, they're going to expect 2 openers. If it's a 3-car, 3, so on and so forth. So make sure you have them. And because people will bring that up when they do their final walkthrough on the property. Where are the garage openers? Just like the mailbox keys, the storage keys, don't lose them. And if you've lost them, get a new one, because you're going to pay for it at the end. And it's, last night we had a great quote from one of our inspectors that said, if you tackle it up front, you pay wholesale. If you tackle it later during the transaction, you pay retail, which I thought was brilliant, right? Like if you have lost the key to your mailbox, this is probably if you're more in a condo or a townhome, you've lost the key to your mailbox, someone's going to want the key, right? They got to get their mail. So if you go out and fix it, maybe it's 20, 25 bucks, you might be giving them $100 at the closing for it. So fix so be mindful of those little things. You will need to deliver mailbox, storage keys, garage openers to someone at the closing. And if you don't have them, they are going to hold it over your head. Don't you forget it. So that's about, I think that might be it. I think we might wrap our broadcast a little early. Normally we do about an hour here, but because it's just one guest tonight and then me for the rest of it, I think we've hit. So I'm going to thank you guys all, everyone that's commented, that's liked, that's loved the broadcast tonight. Thanks so much for tuning in. Our final event is Saturday morning. We are still building our guest list for that, but we should have some wonderful brokers from other markets. And we're just going to do kind of a basic Q&A. So if you're watching this, you think, oh, I missed this one, or I want to hear that, everything's going to be on my Facebook business page, and I believe on YouTube for replay. So you can go back and take a look. But you can also send us questions in advance, and we'll make sure to answer those in our live Q&A on Saturday. It's Saturday morning, this Saturday, May 8th, from 10 to 11 a.m., 10 a.m. Central. And we are going to just kind of wrap up our week. We'll summarize a lot of the different pieces of feedback and expertise that we've learned for the week, if you will. And we'll just hang out a little bit one final time. So thanks everybody for watching. I'm going to shut down our broadcast here. Hope you have a great evening. Appreciate it. For everybody that tuned in and watched live, thank you. Make sure to like or love the broadcast link here so that we know that you were here with us. Hope you have a great night, and we'll see you soon. Bye. Good night.